You're live. Good to start.
All right, thank you. So we'll call the meeting to order. Thanks, everybody, for braving the weather and coming out. I do believe we have a quorum, but let's just do the math real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have a quorum. So that's good. Are there any adjustments that need to be made to the agenda?
Under old business, I can give a review of some of the research I did about incentives for ADU construction.
Okay, awesome.
So that'd probably go into the housing. Yeah. Number 2.
Yep. Okay. Citizens' comments. I guess we're citizens as
Thank
well.
you for the reminder. Sorry,
Oh,
I was being reminded to
No worries.
get my dog licensed.
How else would they drive?
Well, that's it. Well, how can she dog? You
Yeah.
gotta have a license to dog.
Dogging illegally?
Yeah.
Yeah,
dogs.
my wife took out a license on me.
Renewable every 5 years.
True that.
So my apologies.
We're on good behavior. So no citizens' comments, anything else? No, all right,
Chat.
we'll just settle in.
Just had to find my pen and keep it,
Relax.
restrain it from leaping off the table.
We did have 2 sets of minutes that were circulated. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so we'll start with the October 3rd minutes. Does someone want to make a motion to have those approved?
I'll make a motion.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Okay.
Okay, those pass, thank you. We have a motion to approve the minutes for the November 2nd meeting.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? And those pass as well. Thank you. Thank you for getting those out. Those are tremendous. I read them when they came out a couple of days ago and I reread them again this afternoon. You do a really good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last guy.
The last one was. All right. And that brings us to the chair report. And have a quick look here and see if I got any updates on the food pantry. So today was food pantry day. And everybody knows I like to give my food pantry updates, and I don't have today's numbers, but
Excuse me.
sure.
When you are no longer chair, will you still report on the food pantry, please?
If the committee wants me to update, I'd be happy to do that.
If it pleases the committee.
If it pleases the committee,
Okay.
if we don't feel there's a need for it, I'm happy not to do it.
I think it's a useful metric and it's
I
good
agree.
work too. It's nice to hear about it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Even if it's just a note to Max, you know.
Oh, I didn't get online for some reason. Did something change on the internet here?
Power was out yesterday, so that's messed up quite a few things.
Ah, okay, well, just give me a minute here to.
Is the season.
This may take just a moment.
Tis the season. It's so bright and colorful outside too.
It is really beautiful.
Oh,
The stars are gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tonight.
that cool still air. Yeah.
And the planet, the
Alright.
morning planet is Venus, so give it a little high five. It's my sister's particular study.
The Borough Town Office.
Your sister studies Venus?
What's the top?
Yes, she is
shouldn't need
an
to be a regular-
planetary geologist attached to
There should be a
NASA.
guest- Oh, wow. Need a
And
guest.
she's the head of the Veritas project,
That's amazing.
which is
21.
figuring out where Venus went wrong and how we can keep ourselves from
yes.
doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's so fascinating.
It is amazing.
It's like the evil twin.
Yeah, precisely.
All right,
There we go.
there we go. All right, thank you.
Can't wait to see the recording of that. Perhaps.
All right.
Human life and all their trash. Venus. They moved her.
All right. So let's try this one more time. And I'm getting there. And I'm getting there. And today's attendance. Boom. All right. So here are the numbers. So this is from Tuesday, November 21st, which was the Thanksgiving distribution, which tends to be one of the real big ones for us. So we kind of, because we give out turkeys and all that, so it's kind of a big one. But so you remember historically, we're in that like that 140 to 150 family range. So on Thanksgiving, we had 181 households,
Oh, my.
all-time record, which I hate saying that, but
Yeah.
it is an all-time record. And those households represented 489 individuals, 174 children, 238 adults, and 77 seniors.
That's
So-
coming up on 10% of the Waldeboro population, pretty much.
It's well, almost probably like 489.
That's close. Yeah, that's nine. That's high nines.
That does include
Alright.
some folks
I was
from
gonna ask, are they-
Nobleboro and Bremen, but the majority are Waldeboro. Also at the same time, and I don't know if you guys are gonna, do you want me to report how many baskets the town gave out?
No, go ahead.
So the town distributed that same day 147 Thanksgiving Day baskets.
Mhm.
Wow.
Okay, so here's the amazing part. There's only a crossover of 40 families between what we gave out and what the town gave out. So, you know, the town's got over 100 families. And you add that to our 181, it's like 280 families came for help to get food on Thanksgiving.
I'm glad they could get something.
Yeah.
And the food's amazing. I mean, if anybody has a chance on a Tuesday, that's the distribution day, first and third Tuesday of every month, drop by and have a look at the opera. It's just fantastic. You know, it's
If I want to drop by things, like I saw the call went out for personal care products. I'm assuming they don't want me to show up on a Tuesday.
never show up on a Tuesday. That
Are there other dates that are good?
the best thing to do is, believe it or not, drop them off at my house.
Just what you want.
No,
And we've got to institutionalize this thing.
we have a little desk, or not desk, bench outside our house. And we have a big parking area, so you can pull in and park and drop, just let me know, send me an email, say, hey, I dropped off. And I'll put it right in my truck and bring it to the food pantry to distribute.
Okay,
So we avoid having people
right. And your address is?
995 Main Street.
Just down from the post office.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
We got a big, used to be a restaurant, so it's got a big 995 sign.
Oh, yes, that's that place. I've
That-
wondered what it wants to become and or what.
It's a house for two people.
Oh, okay.
It hasn't grown up. yet.
Shop.
I'm looking forward to spring when that shop opens. again.
Yeah.
I love running around in there.
Yeah, so anyways, that's the easiest way to
Okay.
drop things off.
Great.
Obviously, nothing that's expired if it's food products.
Paper products.
Yep.
All right, so that's kind of the sad news on food insecurity in Waldoboro. It really hasn't really gotten a whole lot better. We see every year we're setting, every year over year has been just since the pandemic. Typically we were seeing, I think 40 to 50 families, just to give you an idea. So you can imagine how food insecurity has grown since then.
I think to add on to that, Julie had a similar stat when the Thanksgiving baskets were talked about at the last select board meeting. I think it was about 20 or 35 people get Thanksgiving baskets before the pandemic. And you gave the stats already that we exceeded that 140 for this one. So it's a big jump.
Yeah,
Where's the nearest food pantry?
we are. So Waldoboro.
No, the next one. Where's the nearest one?
location? Probably, there's one in Union, called, I think Good Harvest. I could have the name wrong.
Spring.
Yeah, that's it. And that's a very nice operation as well. There's also one in Jefferson, which is relatively close. Obviously the real big one's Rockland.
Okay.
So that's AIO, and that's a big operation. They have a shopping experience and a huge walk-in freezer and fridge. I mean, it's
Right.
just,
I
yeah,
noticed that. Okay.
state-of-the-art kind of operation. So let me go back.
We track any demographics or anything for things like the toy baskets, and stuff like that. My angle's a little bit odd. I was shopping for toys for kids in the family. And then I went to Martin's in Scarborough and I saw a bunch of toys for brown kids, which we don't have a lot of in Maine. You know, that whole spectrum. So I guess I'm asking that question to make sure those kids, like if a little girl wants to collect a doll, does she want something that looks more like she does? It's a thing you hear about in movies and stuff.
yeah.
So I didn't know how interesting Waldoboro was in terms of that, or if we had any data for it. We've got lots of regular stuff, but if those kids aren't getting that piece of it, it's something that would be useful to know.
I mean, that's probably more of a town question than a food pantry question.
I didn't
so-
know how much of an overlap there might be.
So we do some, we'll do some things like we'll hand out scarves and mitts and hats sometimes if they're available or somebody drops them off, but our purpose is food,
Right,
food insecurity. So we don't want to,
and that's fine. It wouldn't
Yeah.
be the same thing.
but
It's,
the town obviously does.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot there.
What makes you say that?
Does a wonderful toy drive every year. And I think the town tries to match the child's desire or need with the toy. Do you know? that?
Bob's nodding his head, so I'm gonna say yes.
Yeah. No,
Is there
we
like
do.
a list of what
They
people
take,
want? or
they
what we
take a
don't want?
personal interest in
Christmas
each
tags.
family that signs up.
Where it's
And they take it on the size.
What they
and
want. Those
that
get
kind of stuff
distributed.
they
You collect
get.
them from somewhere.
So yeah, it gets very personal.
So
Yes.
Bob was saying that, yeah, the town does try to match up the families with what the requirements are.
Are there, and sorry, I was listening to two things at the same time. Some places will have like a Christmas tree with tags to say what people want. Does that exist, or is there a list somewhere of things kids have asked for?
Amazon.
Yep, like under Waldoboro?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a wish list on Amazon. It closes on Thursday. But yeah, that's where, I mean, I ordered 5 or 6 things off of that, and I always took that from the elves here taking down specific requests because they're very specific items, like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, this particular one and
A
stuff.
red
So I think they
jacket.
really do.
Jacket or
Is there a shareable link? Like, is that something you could send on Facebook later, or?
Yeah, I think that's I think the town did its Facebook post on it. If not, I think it could be.
Yeah, and I've shared it quite a few times too. So I do have it.
You've got it on What's New Waldoboro?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll look through that.
I've been paying attention to so many other things, I'm just now seeing stuff.
Well, the other
and getting
You never really know what appears in people's feeds too, so, you know.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, cool.
And there are so many families that really need the help, you know. And my experience is certainly at the food pantry, you couldn't meet more appreciative folks. I mean, it's, you know, I know people, oh, they're trying to take advantage or whatever. There's none of that. These are people that,
Yeah,
Really
people get
need it.
stuck on that a lot. I haven't seen what you've seen, but
yeah.
what you say makes a lot more sense. People generally are pretty good.
All right, and that takes us to the really exciting part of the meeting, our selection of officers. So you want to
Moderated.
moderate this?
Yeah, sure.
Are you guys gonna have like a spirited debate or?
Yeah, so I unfortunately forgot to send out a message a month ago, but I hope everyone had a good 4 or 5 days to mull this over if they're interested in being officers. I'm aware that Jan would like to step down after his
10-year.
quote unquote voluntary 10-year period. Jen, I didn't know if you wanted to go again for vice chair or if you want to wait a little bit more, or what are your thoughts?
I think that if there's anyone who wanted to take over that role, that would be fine. I think new blood is always healthy.
And if we want just to be in line with select board and planning board officers, we can also just make sure that these are positions at least for 6 months. And then once we get into the next fiscal year in July, we can do officers again. In case the people who are being the officers now want to redo, in case they don't want a 10-year position. So this doesn't have to be a final decision tonight type thing. It can be a temporary, let people get comfortable with the positions that they feel like it. So we can start with the chair. The chair's role will be to kind of do what Jan has been doing for a while and what I'm doing right now. It's moderating the discussion, leading people into the topics, and then making sure everyone can speak during period and no one gets more talking time, like what I'm doing right now.
We will let you talk.
They'll also have their dedicated little chair report period so that they can talk about any subject that's on their mind. With Jan, it's the food pantry, but it's really whatever the chair would like to go on. And yeah, that's the role pretty much. So with that said, is there anyone here who is interested? I have not heard any prior things in emails, and George has said he does not want to run for any officer spots. Is there anyone here who is interested in running for officer, for the chair position?
I'm interested.
We got one.
We got one. Anyone else? Looking around the table. Looking at Jen on the monitor.
This is going to be so easy.
I already had my chance. I had that position for years before.
Hang on, what's that, Jen?
I said I already did my time as chair. I had it many years before Jan took over, so I'm fine.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's not proper. He's a brand new member to the committee and he's also brand new to Waldeboro. We don't know who you are. We have not seen you on the committee. So for you to just become a member and then become the chair by default is very improper. It's not proper meeting procedure and can be very devastating to the perception to the public about the committee. I can cite as an example, Rusty Jackson in the Mid-Coast Charities. Brand new guy to town, loved him in Camden. He became the fundraising chairman for the Mid-Coast Charities. He'd greet people, he'd take their checks, pop it in the thing. Thank you very much. That same check would go into his bank account, and he even bought a couple of buildings in downtown Camden with that money. And they caught up with them in about 6 months. And they were seizing the assets, but they lost a lot of money, and Mid-Coast Charities took a very damaging hit. One, they didn't have proper accounting things, and it's nothing personal, but nobody knew Rusty Jackson, but he came off as a great guy, but we don't know who you are, not yet, So I've been here in Waldeboro for 5 years, but I don't think I'd be chair because I don't know half the people here and you don't know me. So I wouldn't volunteer for something like that, so, you know, but I would think it would be someone who's been on the committee longer. And that people know them. Do you understand?
So I think that's a good point. I mean, I would counter that with, when I got the chairmanship 10 years ago, it was my very first meeting. And I had just moved to Waldeboro from California.
Well,
So it was a
I
very
can't speak
similar-
For that.
It was
so,
a
yeah.
very similar circumstance. So, you know, I would say, I think that's a reasonable position, but I think also it's reasonable to say it could work out just fine. Yeah, Bob.
I'd also add that it's not a fiduciary responsibility. It's
Well, yeah.
running a meeting and putting an agenda together and developing consensus. And it's a great way if you're new to town to get to know people. And for
100%.
people to get to know you. And we need that
I
in
would
this
say
town.
joining clubs,
need that in
becoming
this
members
town.
of something and
Yeah.
attending, but becoming leader of a meeting. That's
Sorry?
really improper. It really is.
Well, I
But
disagree
that's
with you
my
respectfully.
permission, but you
Okay.
can make your statements,
Okay.
yeah.
Are there any other, yes?
Are we moderating or not?
Oh, sorry.
I thought you stepped
I took
down.
over. I'm sorry. Old habit.
That's fine, it's
I
fine.
raised my hand.
I'm trying to be a bit more lighthearted.
Old habit.
It's a lighthearted bit. And
I mean, I absolutely understand your point and I acknowledge that. In, building on Bob's point, though, it is not, there's no checkbook, there's no budget. It's not that we'd be looking to raise money for anything. Conrad wouldn't have signing authority. The other part of it is that with, if someone has concerns, you've been very straightforward at letting us know what your background is. We can call, prior employers, we can look up, the LinkedIn, we can call people that Conrad has worked with. So there's an opportunity, if we're concerned, to do some due diligence and make sure that we're not hiring a chap like this lovely guy in Camden. So I understand the concern and I think it's very valid. I think this is a different situation. So while I agree with I'm glad you brought it up, and I agree with Bob that I respectfully don't feel that it applies to this situation.
I noted, and just a reminder for what I noted earlier, it could be a position that's temporary, and then in June, we can have another officer's election. At that time, it would be sort of a review, if you will, of Mike's time on as the chair. So that is an option as well, or even the opposite, where I moderate for the next 6 meetings, and then once we get to June, Mike's had enough time to be on here that it would be a time to get to know him a little bit more. Oh,
I also think that, I know you're saying.
or Conrad.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
I'm thinking of Mike Advocate.
Yeah.
I've had a long day. Not really my finest moment to advocate for me taking over 6 months when I'm mixing up people's names. Right, Tony?
I would be very comfortable with Max moderating for the next 6 months. I'm volunteering because I care about consensus and I care about the issues that this committee is addressing. And like Bob pointed out, I actually do want to get to know the people who have been here, the people who are new to town, and the possibilities for moving forward in this town. So I'm interested. I'm not demanding anything. So that's all.
Any other thoughts, Ruben? George?
A lot of what I've heard is,
I know.
a lot of what I've heard in favor is stuff out of group, and I understand the points you're coming from. I don't see the harm Conrad could do here in the position what this panel does. And as far as the amount of time in Waldeboro, I've been here for, I don't know, 10 or 11 years on committees for 6, 7. But I moved up pretty quick on the CTC when that existed. very quickly because we needed more people and we needed sort of a fresh take. And that's what Conrad is doing now. If there were a position where it could cause financial harm to the town or any actual structural harm, I would feel differently. And don't confuse this with me thinking the committee's unimportant. I don't think that. But I don't see the ability to cause negative material change as present in this committee. So if someone were just gonna pop into town and start trying to run a meeting the next day and they know how, I think it's a great set of training wheels. And for the other people we have, even though they're not in charge, we have Jen, we have Max, we have Bob. I've run a couple of meetings myself, so we could turn you or help you become a better sort of community leader starting here, but we get to start somewhere. So I see more good than harm. I don't see any negative from my angle.
And then I see Jen's hand up. Jen?
Yeah, I would just say that none of us are shy on the committee. And so, and we don't have any issues having discussions with each other about stuff. And so if something came up that we didn't agree with, I'm sure we would let Conrad know right away. You know, I mean, really, we're not shy, so I don't think that any damage would be done. But I actually do understand Sonia's point. It's so Jan got I don't know, I don't want to say you got railroaded, but I think I think we had a smaller committee in those days, which got bigger when we went to subcommittees about broadband and stuff, but it was
A vibrant committee. I mean,
yeah.
Bob, you were on the committee at that time.
Yep.
And me, yep.
It might, I don't know if it was bigger or smaller, but it was a vibrant committee for sure.
Yeah, there's always a lot of opinions and thoughts and feelings about the topics that we talk about. I think because we care, everybody seems to really care what happens in town and how we set up and try to approach the future. And I think Max has been extremely helpful with helping us craft the TIF. First, we had to learn about the TIF, then we had to craft that. It took a couple years. But we've always been working towards making things better and creating, or Max has been helping us to create more resources for the town to address the economic growth issues that, if we can, that would be really helpful.
So Patty, do you have any thoughts before I give my thoughts?
Only similar. I don't see where there's not a fiduciary thing. And as Jen said, we all tend to be a little outspoken on this committee, so there's objections. And I also feel like a good half of the group are new people to Waldoboro. So if you're gonna select from the pool that we have, the odds are you're gonna have somebody who's new to Waldoboro.
I'm curious to see what you do.
So
100%.
So
I'm fine with it.
So there's two different motions that could be made right now. One would be the election of Ryan Gosling over here as the chair. I'm sorry,
One
Conrad.
of those notes.
Sorry, Conrad.
Hopefully.
Getting confused with somebody, that's not the worst you could do.
One would be selecting Conrad as the chair. The second motion option would be to have me be the moderator for these meetings until July of next year. At that time, an officer's election would be up.
I'm at my name.
Denied. Go ahead.
You're a very busy guy. And I think anything that helps you lighten your load is to your benefit. You come to these meetings anyway, and your contributions are really important. So I think it would be helpful if you had some more help, and it would be good to have Conrad step up and help with that. I sense that you guys work together well. I know you work well with Jan, and that's important. So that's my 2 cents.
I agree with that.
I move that we nominate Conrad to be the chairman going forward of the EDC? Is that,
Says second,
Second,
Ruben. Further discussion? And is that going to be a 6-month period where in July it's voted again, or just chair?
I like the 6 months. It says you want to schedule.
I'd say the
I
6
bet
months.
you like it.
okay.
6 months?
Let's start with the
You
6
mean
months.
Byron out of here with his hair on fire.
6, all right,
That would line us up with the other committees in general, right?
right,
Yeah, so that's clean. is
or
what
at
I
least
like
the
about it.
select board, planning board.
And then you can replace me in July, fair and square.
Aim high.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Jen, your hand is up in favor,
I'm
Is,
not. Okay,
okay? All right, all those opposed? Abstaining,
Abstaining.
all right. 6, 4, 1 against, 1 abstaining.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Conrad, do you want to start chairing here on out, or do you want to
Oh,
wait? Do you want me to?
I think the
handle it?
plan at the last meeting was to take a vote this meeting and start in January.
All right, I can handle that.
So we can do that.
That's fine.
Is there any interest for people running for vice chair? Not all at once.
You can't all be vice chair.
Jen,
yep,
do you have any thoughts on still being vice chair at least for 6 more months?
I could do it for 6 more months if you need me.
if you like someone that's not here,
Basically, just so everybody understands, vice chair basically steps in to lead the meeting when the chair is unable to do it. That's basically how we've run this so far.
Right.
It's not, you're not gonna get called upon very frequently. It's a handful of times, maybe here and there, but it is, I think it's good to have a vice chair, actually.
you might want to go on vacation or get the flu or.
Absolutely. So you have a break if you need it.
And Jen, you have been vice chair?
Yes, I've been vice chair, at least as long as Jan's been chair, and I was chair prior to on the EDC years before that.
Dan's just been to all the meetings.
Yeah, more or less. I would feel very guilty not showing up.
All right,
I would like to suggest that having an experienced vice chair like Jen and a new chair
Mhm.
might work really nicely
Mhm.
in terms of helping Conrad figure out the ropes. And then with an eye toward in 6 months, if, to actually give you a break occasionally, Jen, we might, if Jen wants to step back, then somebody here might be able to take that position.
is that a
It's
motion
it's
by
a
Jen?
good, it's a good practice also for anybody who is, just wants to get used to how things work in the back,
I think we should make a vote on it,
Yeah,
so we have a documentation.
is there a motion for nomination of vice chair?
So move Jen Merritt for vice chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
And further discussion? All those in favor?
Yeah.
Jen, I take it you're abstaining?
Yep, I'm abstaining.
All right, motion passes.
Jen's for vice.
That's funny.
Awesome.
All right. So with that, that's the 2 main officer positions. I take it we'll leave it at that for now.
I think we're gonna leave it at that for now. That's mission accomplished. Thank you. All right, and that takes us to town updates.
Did you want to keep going the whole meeting?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Town updates.
All right.
Back to you.
Hot potato.
You can tell I'm on top of things today. Planning board. So last month, the 80 gray designs were approved, so hopefully that is the last that I will have to deal with talking about 80 gray and senior housing, for most part. There was also a vehicle service expansion on Union Road that was approved. There was an agriculture-related business / event center that was proposed on Robinson Road that got tabled, and it's gonna go back to the planning board next week. Same thing with 2 subdivisions that have been in the works for quite some time. One is a 2-lot subdivision on Filer's Corner, and the other is a 10-lot subdivision on Old Augusta Road. The 10-lot subdivision will likely turn into more of a 7, I think, lot subdivision, because there's a few lots that may be pushed to be preserved for agricultural use. And that will be on December 14th.
Sorry, Max.
Yeah.
Is that the area that's down near 235, but not too far from 235 on the right as you're heading toward 235? And it's
On-
farmed now.
On Union?
Spears uses it now. right?
Spears uses it, yeah. So if you're going up 220 and you take a right.
Yeah.
And you've just passed the Filer's Corner intersection of
Right.
Old Augusta Road, it'll be that property on the right. It's a
Okay, so
100
it's right there on the, basically on the corner.
yeah, just
I
a
was
little-
thinking of another,
yeah,
sorry.
it's a rather large one, and all the applications are online right now. People want to take a look at those. 80 Gray. The select board recently approved to allow the abatement and potential demolition to start now. So if you see some people up at 80 Gray School going inside the building, they are Lakeside Construction. They are getting the asbestos and lead out of the building first before the demolition takes place. Demolition should hopefully start close to December 18th, and then hopefully demolition is done by mid-January.
Oh.
That'd be a great pace.
I'm working with Billy Maxwell now for the brick fundraiser. So if anyone wants to keep a piece of 80 Gray, contact Billy Maxwell, and the proceeds will go to the Historical Society's fundraising capital improvement projects. I need to get an actual date from Volunteers of America for when that weekend will actually be, but go ahead and call Billy and reserve your bricks.
That's a great idea. Wait, is there,
No.
well, is there a special provision for the cement ornamented?
So part of the demolition has been the Waldeboro High School sign.
Yeah,
It's a 50-50 of whether that is something that can stay in one piece that will be preserved and placed on the parcel that still belongs to town.
Oh.
Or if it was some of that cheap material that's gonna just crumble to dust the moment that people just touch it.
oh, but I also meant like the 1935 Art Deco bit over the
I don't know if that was included in it. I know that the time capsule that's inside and the Waldeboro High School were the main items of concern, but I can check to see about the 1935 item.
I'll look it up myself. It was just passing.
Is that like a cornerstone or something like?
Well, it's just the main doors, there's an ornamented cement piece arch over the door, and there's like a little book, and a book,
Wow.
and then it's 1935. It's kind of pretty. That's something I would bid on for the Historical Society. That's all.
When we asked them early on about it, it was the Waldeboro High School sign. That was the main thing.
They focused on that.
Yeah.
I can see if it's possible to do it, but it's also, I don't know if Lakeside's going to just get it off or if it would be convenient for them to do it. I'll have to check with them about that.
They're not swinging hammers yet. They can fundraise, heck.
That's true. Bob, you had your hand up?
I was just wondering what the price per brick was gonna be.
Yeah.
That's a good question, and you'd have to ask Billy that.
Okay,
I want to say it's $1 or so a brick, but for you, Bob, I think he'll,
you could cut me a deal?
no, I
No,
think
he'll probably.
Go the other way.
I would like to say,
Right.
for most people at this table, it'll be $1, but for you, Bob, he'll make sure you get the $10.
Yeah,
buy.
right.
The $10 special.
Premium bricks.
And they'll throw it through your window.
Right.
Free.
Oh, I didn't know it included delivery too.
That's what you paid extra.
So,
Yeah.
That's fine.
so that's it for 80 Gray. Sylvania and Hofstas. The RFP closed on the Hofstas house for the relocation. And unfortunately, we only got one bid back, and that was for salvaging the property, not to preserve it and move it elsewhere. So the town's putting out another RFP for any type of removal of the property. This is relocation, demolition, salvaging. Am I forgetting other terms, Bob?
Well, either demolition or salvaging.
Yeah.
But probably not moving it. I think the people I've spoken to.
Mm.
You're not gonna find someone to move it probably, but you might find someone to take it down and move it. But I think it's more likely what you're saying.
Demolition.
Yeah.
So we're gonna put that out soon and see what we get for responses. And the other bit for Sylvania is next week, we're hopefully gonna be seeing some designs for the sites. We've been working with Barbara Boardman to get trying to think what the right term would be, but
A conceptual drawing.
conceptual drawing for converting the site for recreational use. Sonia?
Who is it that you're talking to? Boardman?
Barbara Boardman. She's on the planning board and she has some experience doing this landscape architect work.
She's a landscape.
He's a landscape architect.
So I'm right when I say she has experience.
Yeah.
Yep. Technically correct, the best kind of correct.
Exactly.
And if I remember preliminary discussions in that property. There's parts of the property that we can't access or we can't put a building on, but there's acres of property that we could do something with.
Yes, so there's the restricted area where they don't want any digging of any kind done. And that doesn't really matter with what we're planning. It's more of just recapping the site and then having like spaces with tennis courts, basketball courts, because we've lost that now with 80 Gray, as well as maybe playgrounds, potential pavilion and long-term trailhead access. Patty, Bob, am I forgetting anything else?
No,
I think you've covered it.
there was a lot of input with one of the votes we had last year, what people wanted to see. Direction we wanted to go, so that's the way it's going.
So rather than digging, we're just gonna put on new material to cover the concrete slabs and that's gonna be, well, we have to have an engineering study done by Pine Tree, so we'll get the price and then that's gonna be able to go out to bid and we'll get grant funding too.
So I got that, but what are we planning to do with the property that doesn't need to be capped or that's outside,
The open
outside,
fields,
yeah.
that's something that still is up for discussion. Right now, it's just low impact trails being planned. Can be more in the future, but that's right now, personally. The cap is the concrete area is the bigger focus right now. Everyone's driving by, it. You're all seeing it right now. Most people don't even realize how much land is behind that. But once we start getting that concrete area covered at least, and then working towards that, we can discuss the backfields, which I don't know if anyone else has been there. I've gone there when the Waldeboro Day Festival happened, with everyone parked up there. I was able to walk the area. It was still quiet and serene, even as a trail.
Yeah,
So it might just stay this way.
Does it go down it goes down to the water, right?
It goes down to the water, but there's a bit of a drop, so don't plan on having a boat launch there.
Yeah,
All right, Bob?
Did Barbara get responses to the questions? She put
Yes,
out?
yes, I sent that to her
Okay,
Friday, I think.
was the response?
Very good, a lot of, well, everyone gave
Good.
responses. She appreciated the summary that was provided. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
This is wonderful surprise. Hi, Julie.
We're honored to have you.
Yes.
I'm honored to be here.
Just talking about Sylvania, and I've already gone through the RFP. I don't think there were any plans so far for the area beyond the concrete pad, but we're next week just waiting to hear Barbara's plan for it, and then we can hopefully move towards getting a study done to get this site capped. Anything else to add on Sylvania?
Just that the new RFP will be out after somebody reviews it for me.
For those at home who couldn't understand that, she's giving a glare to Bob.
Which Bob?
Yeah.
You,
Bob
right? No, Max has been messing up names, so I think it's Bob at the moment.
I just want to make sure I got what I was supposed to get in there. I gave it to Bob to review because he's good at that.
Did you send that today or I'm missing?
You missed it.
I did. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I sent it yesterday, I think.
Oh, man.
Wait a moment. I want to see it.
I pulled your email.
I will.
The last The last time I have for town updates is a congressional delegate spending update. I know last year that I said, oh, we're gonna move forward on this whole thing, and here we are a year later, nothing's happened. So I'm doing what is now a sad tradition of mine where I contact my person at the HUD program who's handling these funds to make sure that we still have those funds in case something changes. And they have said, yes, as long as we can get a contract by 2025, there's still $1 million ready for us. So let's hope 2024 is different, folks.
How
What do you
much is
need
ready
for
for
that?
us?
$1 million for the
Million,
community
okay.
center.
But were you going for a second?
I was trying to go for that earlier this year, but they didn't give it to us because it's a very competitive year compared to what it was when I initially got this. And it's really hard to advocate for more funding when we still have $1 million untouched.
Got it.
So
What is it that's holding that up?
when we initially applied for the $1 million, the plan was to put everything. Sorry, no, I like that.
Move it.
I like having this here. It adds some festivities to the whole meeting. Back in like 21, when the earmark funding first started, I just threw in $1 million request saying, hey, we can do this to get a community center and a main health facility behind the Miller ball fields. Well, turns out that's when we found out those were wetlands that you really can't build on, and for different reasons. And we have not been able to get another site since. So
Okay, so we're waiting on the site.
we're waiting on a site. We're working with Maine Health to try and find something. And one day, maybe if you wish upon a star this Christmas, something will change.
Or a Starlink satellite. I see a lot of those.
Fingers crossed.
Let's talk offline
Okay.
about what you're looking for, simply because I hear
Yeah.
weird stuff going
Here.
around.
That's fine.
So
And just so I'm clear about this, Sylvania was never an option because even if you cap the site, you can't build
Yeah.
in the restricted area at all.
Sylvania would have been probably fine for Maine Health, but well, legally it would have been fine for Maine Health, but I don't know how many people would want their doctor's offices on a brownfield site.
Mhm.
The other part is due to the environmental covenant restrictions, you can't have childcare there, and one of the things we really wanted to do was have childcare at the community center, so it kind of defeats the purpose of that, but yeah, Sylvania was considered for a bit, but it would have been a bit difficult.
Yeah.
But that's the update I have for the town. Julie, did you have anything you wanted to add in there?
What did you cover? Sylvania?
Planning board items, 80 Gray, just updating about demolition and everything. Sylvania, Hofstas, congressional delegate spending. Actually, I don't know if I brought this up at the last meeting, but downtown intersections, I have that submitted to the main DOT. So hopefully we'll get some speed tables going on in the downtown in a year or so. So we're gonna get there. Probably not as fast as people would like, but not as fast as people go downtown right now, but we'll get there. That's all I have for town updates.
So I'll just mention one more time that with the Supreme Court ruling on wetlands, are we still of the position that the property behind Miller School is in fact wetlands?
Even if they probably weren't in these protected wetlands that we're talking about, I don't think the soils are still not good. Like, I remember when I had Dustin Dorr, who was with the DEP a while ago, initially looking at all this, he walked the site and said it reminded him of a place in Wiscasset. That place is slowly sinking.
Yeah, so there's no firm ground to build on, basically.
So one thing to consider is the mess up at the high school and middle school. We don't want to get into something like that either, that over the years gets worse and worse.
Good point. All right. Thank you. Is that it?
That's it for town updates.
Okay, so that takes us to old business. Any updates on broadband?
So we're moving along. We're not done, but Max and I got to meet with LCI today and they've got most of their network plan done. What's left is they need to eyeball every single unserved address to verify the count they have is accurate. As Spectrum has gone in and expanded or repaired, or as TDS has gone in and done one edge of the town, that's made us unsure of some of the numbers, and we need that last piece so we can complete a whole phasing plan and to get to accurate pricing. So our next meeting is, I think, January is what we said, probably.
Yeah.
So we expect to have numbers in January that we'll go over in a smaller group. Bob, you'll hear more about that too, because we'll want to pick your brain. And then we'll not buy the group here and look at bringing something to the select board. So we're getting closer. We saw a lot of great maps today. All the numbers we saw are not ready for prime time, and presenting them would just muddy the waters. So we chose to leave them there until there's an official publication. But our money in terms of planning and the level of detail they put in was very well spent. They didn't just come up with a number. It's everything from fiber count to materials to poles they'd have to repair. It's a complete project plan that they're putting together. So something that you could easily explain. It's something you could split out into multiple phases and even triage if you need to. So I was encouraged by what we saw today, but we're not done.
So what do you think the odds are that folks will transition from a copper, internet service to a fiber internet service?
Your question's all about really time scale.
And
Sort of money, but as copper infrastructure wears out, like if there were a storm big enough like what happened in New York a few years ago and the whole copper plant was wiped out, no one would ever rebuild that. And it's cheaper to replace it with fiber.
Yeah.
Every expansion Spectrum does ends up with less coax and more fiber. And then coax is just what goes from the pole to the house, because over that short distance, you can do a lot of neat tricks to push a lot of information. Whatever
Okay.
speed you think that's limited to, you're wrong. It can go faster than that. So eventually everything will be delivered over that medium. And then you'll have 1 to 2% that's delivered via radio, but that radio is going to be fed by a really fat fiber backbone. So it's not so much if, it's when.
And so I understand that you can do some amazing things with copper, but fiber's the Cadillac solution, right?
If you had nothing, if you're building in a vacuum, you build with fiber. You can push like 1.4 terabits of data over a single thread.
Yeah.
Which is most towns wouldn't need that much bandwidth, at least not right now. All the stuff that's delivered, like your fastest cable connections, there's a fiber backbone there. Your telecommunications, that's all a fiber core. It's just expanding out slowly. Copper's neat. We've had copper phone systems for 100 years, and they're paid for, aside from maintenance.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons those don't go away. The real challenge isn't what technology. If you really want to see something useful from a financial perspective, from an economic perspective, you want 2 carriers.
Right.
Competition.
So we had a fun email exchange yesterday, where there were a bunch of tinted window vehicles driving around, freaking people out. And that's Spectrum looking at their infrastructure, getting ready to roll out their next upgrade. So these numbers don't have to mean anything to you. One's bigger than the next one. So the fastest connection you can get from Spectrum today is 1,000 megs down and 40 up.
40.
Sorry. No, that's fine. With their next upgrade, the upgrade they're pushing that's going to be done statewide by 2025, it'll be 2 by 1 gig maximum. And the end game for that technology will be 10 by 2 gig. Not megabits, but 10 gigabit down, 2 gigabit up. Now over fiber, you can do 100 gigs over 1 strand.
Yeah.
The next place everything's going by 2026, everyone's going to have access to some kind of 2 gigabit internet connection at home. If it's one provider, that's going to be $100 to $150 a month. Once you have 2, it's suddenly 60 or 70.
Yeah.
I'll use my own home as an example, because my telephone pole's in Warren, even though my house is in Waldeboro. So when TDS built their network and flipped it on, I was able to connect to it. I had cable, which is turned off right now. I was paying, I think, $118 a month by the end for a gig by 40 meg. I'm paying $63 a month for gigabit fiber. Spectrum's trying to sell me gigabit cable for $29.
Just because. Yeah.
Because there's competition there.
Yeah.
Even if the speed were the same, when the Spectrum upgrades are done for the work I do, I'd keep the more expensive fiber because the latency, how long the stuff takes to answer me back, is still faster. And I'm doing the work I'm doing now. This is your work from home stuff. This is your 6-digit jobs. If I'm uploading a virtual machine, if I'm building a server and sending it somewhere, I want that response time to be a lot faster. There's stuff I can do over fiber that I can't do over cable. If that's too slow, I can make a phone call for $300 a month, have an 8 gig connection, as long as I know how to run it. Even all that aside, the fact that I've got those 2 things there means my internet's cheaper, which means I keep more money. And I'm more competitive for jobs and more competitive for a lot of things. That's the real goal to get to the rest of Waldoboro.
And just to summarize this, this research is connected to an investment that the town can make as part of the TIF to help move this forward.
Potentially. So what we've done, the investment we've made, we used $5,000 of TIF money to work with LCI to get a network designed.
Yeah.
So we can get a price tag to roll fiber out. Once we have that final price, we then look at it and say, okay, this is our number. How does it get paid for? How does it get paid back? And what's palatable to the voters in town? This was all really an impetus to connect the last couple hundred houses that can't get access to any kind of meaningful wireline broadband. Getting a bond to connect 200 houses in a town of a few thousand is not going to go over well. If it were me, that was part of my property tax, I wouldn't be okay with it. So the answer is, well, what if we build this out to everyone so everyone has access to it?
Mhm.
So that's what we're getting the price for right now. And there's going to be more nuance in there. There's a lot of different ways you could do that when it comes to paying it back. If your density is high enough, you could pay that bond back by subscriber fees, and then you get the loan, but the actual project pays for itself back. That'll get presented again once we have this number. We need our final set of numbers so we can come up with scenarios, and then we can speak intelligently if we're going to put something on a ballot.
Right.
Does that make
Yes,
sense?
very clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so it takes us to housing. So we have some housing discussions. Who wants to take the lead?
My LC, for my Lincoln County item is a pretty quick thing, so.
Okay, go ahead.
Mark Stoltz and myself, and actually Derek Booker from EMS briefly spoke with Mary Ellen and Mary Ellen regarding their second part of their Camoin study. The first part was to talk about what need there was going to be for housing. The second part, which is going on now, is to see what potential sites there are, so that that could encourage some developers to know that there are places in Lincoln County's mind where these types of high density developments could go. One of the things I kind of stressed was there's very little spots. There's places that if we can do expansions, there's very valuable places. I love bringing up my Route 1, Route 235 intersection spot, how that would be great. We can get we can get sewer there. Water is a different thing, but that gives us about 10-15 acres worth of development that could be done. And then just mentioned other potential sites, some encouragement on more subdivision type things where with the spaghetti lots we have, we could encourage more people to build like a road that gets down to the water. You can then make some more lots that go along property, but some people probably don't want to get rid of that 1 mile road or open field that gets to the water. The other encouragement was accessory dwelling units as well, trying to get more encouragement to have people make an ADU in their own home, especially now with the LD 2003 bringing awareness to it. But it was actually funny because there was a study that, or I think it was a study. I sent it over to Billy there about
This one here.
I'm gonna keep going on with this
Yeah,
the whole night. Keep that mic on
We have
there.
a trend.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was, but what it
You
was
might
called.
get it right eventually.
But it was a study done by an appointed group by the Governor's Office for Policy and Innovative Future about accessory dwelling units, how to encourage more of them. That's a study that I'll share after this meeting. But it gave some recommendations for what towns and the state can do to try and encourage more of these accessory units. And that's probably, I feel that's part of what you're going to be talking about in just a minute. So that's all I really have for Lincoln County. There's no report out yet, but I'll let people know if I have any updates on that.
So I guess I brought this up last meeting, the question of incentives for ADU construction. And I asked Daryl if he was aware of a law that would permit a municipal action, a program, and he was not aware. So I did some research and I found that there in fact is a provision, there is a statute that permits municipalities to create a property tax program which provides benefits to homeowners and renters. Very broad language. So a municipality could potentially do this, although to my knowledge, to Max's knowledge, municipalities in Maine have not created property tax abatements or rebates for homeowners to create new ADUs or freshly renovate ADUs.
So what's the current setup? Let's say I put an apartment in my attic.
Well,
And so I increase the value of my property,
mhm.
I guess, so my taxes go up. And I probably try to get the rental income to offset that and offset the cost of
Potentially, yeah.
potentially, right?
Yeah, or you don't do it to code because it would cost an extra $30,000, and you try not to tell the town about it, and then Mark tries to get you to come into conformance. So that's another, side effect of that kind of prohibitive tax code language, I guess. So as the more we've looked into it, though, it seems like the main hurdle for people creating new ADUs is the upfront cost. So if there's a combination of a kind of rebate if you rent to workforce folks, plus some kind of financing options that are either locally sourced or directed at this kind of ADU construction, that's what this report from the Governor's Office of Policy Innovation in the Future says, that basically you need to have better financing options and make sure that people know that they can have access to these smaller sort of microloan programs or deferred loan programs where the loan isn't due until you sell the house, for example. These sorts of things can be accomplished. And then when I talked to Max about this, it does seem like the TIF actually could be used to create a trial program where you specifically get the word out to someone who's considering renovating their garage apartment, that if they rent it to someone who's collecting a paycheck in the Waldoboro area, then they get $500 or $1,000 back on their property taxes. That's an idea. Something like that.
The main housing org has a small program. I found a couple of, on that one meeting I mentioned, among all the different things where it's like someone can convert, and if they agree to a reduced rent rate, they can get startup costs or some money back from it, but I didn't know how, they didn't specify how much. Right.
Which program was that? What program was that?
I sent that to you in an email because you asked me about it. It's under the main housing, and it's hidden in among a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, because they have mortgage loans for trailers. Okay, reduced rates. They were at 5% at some of them I was looking at. And they're different if you own the land you're gonna put the trailer on versus renting. That type of thing. So that program does do there, but I don't know how it's funded because they didn't have, it was just like a blurb in the middle. But
Okay.
the other stuff, would not be useful for us to consider because it's more for the individual if they want to get a break on purchasing. And it's not really a break, so most wouldn't consider it, because it's just.
Sonia, can you send a link to where that is? Because I was looking for that and I didn't find it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to send that. Yeah.
Thank you.
It too.
Yeah.
And I guess potentially if this committee were to make a set of recommendations to the select board, that could be part of the package to say individuals need to be made aware of these programs that are accessible at the individual level. But Waldoboro could actually create a trial program like this that it only lasts for a couple of years. So
Is there a model ordinance out there somewhere?
there are a couple of model ordinances in other cities for creating tax abatements, including one that was considered last year in Anchorage, Alaska. But that specific ordinance regarding the property tax abatement didn't pass because of a set of other laws making it easier for, a bunch of other measures passed.
There was still some language.
But there's still some language.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I found a couple of ordinances that offer the language. But Max had suggested actually tightly crafting this with TIF money rather than creating a program at the property tax sort of level. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, so last round we amended the TIF. It included some language that can go towards workforce housing. So this is a potential project that we can use where we set up a grant program that is Conrad. I got it right that time. I didn't even make a joke.
You could have even said Connor.
I'm off my game tonight. Anyways, yeah, we could set up a grant program or some policy. And from how the TIF is put up, we would just have to make sure that it's a designated amount that's not going to exceed how much we got this year. And then it would just have to be a program that goes through public hearing and then approved by the select board. So
But are you leaning towards like a grant situation or tax abatement? Like,
that's something we would have to discuss.
you're not even thinking that.
Right, that was even part of the GoPIF recommendations that I'll send out. Whereas like, I think the third one, it was towns use their TIF program to complement the accessory dwelling units by offering some incentives.
So just to summarize what he's saying, we had this conversation and then you, after our conversation, found that the Governor's Office of Policy Innovation in the Future,
GoPIF.
GoPIF, just recommended that specific action.
Yep.
Like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
And you can set up those kinds of things as forgivable grants based on criteria,
Yeah, they could
right?
they could be set up as a loan, a forgivable loan, a straight up grant, and we can create it how we want, essentially. As long as it's focused on creating workforce housing, TIF funding could be used, the TIF funding we have established now can be used for it. Now, the thing I will have to give as a note that this is our one TIF account. So if we have, I don't even remember, 60,000, I think was the previous year. So we have 60,000 right now, and there's other capital improvement projects going on right now. So if we use up, say, all 60,000 for this program, that means that's all the TIF funding. It's not going to go to any capital improvement project.
Right.
Now, if we were to use some of those funds to pair it with some grant funding that is available through the state, such as the program that Sonia was mentioning, it goes a lot further along. And if there is interested businesses as well that don't want to spend $1 million or $2 million or 20 million to build this massive complex, but help chip into this program, it helps speed the pot.
And also the idea of using the TIF as a one-time payout versus borrowing against the TIF.
Right.
So your TIF can go a lot further if you borrow against it.
Yeah.
And use that money, borrowed money to compensate the program.
There is also potentially something else that changed that I was not told about with the TIF that might incentivize us to do this even more. Supposedly, if we use 75% of the TIF funds within the first 10 years for housing related stuff, we can extend the life of it for another 20 years.
really,
Supposedly. I have to talk with Tina about that because I never knew about that until I asked about it last week. So I don't know how accurate that is, but I will have to see. But that must have just passed. Bob?
Just putting on my credit analyst hat for a minute, if you're setting up a program with TIF funds and making loans with it, the town is taking a credit risk.
Mhm.
And
You're worried about putting us in that boat?
I don't know that that's appropriate for us to be doing, because we really we do need to have an ability to analyze the project's ability to pay back.
Right.
And it's tricky.
Yeah, when talking about all that, I'm sorry, I did see your hand, Dan. You go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that this sounds like we're getting very detailed very fast when it feels to me like we're way up in the clouds at this moment. Completely agree with your concern about credit ratings and credit assessment and so forth. But I'm not sure that we need to get there until we've figured out what is legal, what's available, what the options all look like.
Right, and that's actually what I was gonna get at. I think if we have some example language from towns that have done it in these ways and get some feedback from them, we have a better way of going forward on this process.
that's something I can pull up together and make a little packet that way. Because remember the idea here is, without distorting the market too much, using the TIF money to create more affordable housing for people who are working locally means that businesses in the area are able to expand, and so it benefits the town in the long term. That would be the high level view here, right?
Well, it's the core mission.
Completely agreed. And given that the market is so bollocksed up, I'm
Yeah.
not sure we're gonna be able to distort it too much.
Right, well,
Yeah.
because Airbnb has distorted it so much anyways.
Yeah.
And it does seem to me that this is sort of the crux of the matter. I mean, businesses trying to expand here
Yeah.
say every day they can't get anyone to work.
Right.
Because no one can move here for a job.
Right.
So it does sort of seem like this is sort of the core issue here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess the question would be just, does the town have an interest in creating an ordinance that changes the language of the property tax, or do we just do a more specialized, or do we recommend a more specialized sort of TIF program that's basically just a direct rebate check? Something that's sort of simple and direct.
Can you do some aspect of both?
I
Is
don't
the
know.
TIF
Hold
funds
on.
could be a what, for, at some point in the future, whereas doing some kind of a rebate might be a little more expedient than trying to play with the TIF money.
That's why I say maybe getting some examples. Sonia, you got your hand up?
Well, I just kind of like to point out, because everybody talks about ways to spend government money and rebate people's taxes. Everybody around this area is suffering greatly under the costs. They can't afford more property tax. So now's the time to bring up the question to our representatives and everybody about property tax reform. No one discusses that. They should have a base rate so that when you put solar on your home, or if you put a porch on, you're not paying every extra penny for every square foot and all that. They should have a base structure. You're allowed to have a front porch. You're allowed to have exterior stairs. You can have 2 solar panels and it's the base rate. Then they define what's luxury, what's not. I've been looking at this one for a long time on the property tax because it's ridiculous. Some people, if they don't, they may have 25 acres and their property tax is $500 because they don't have anything on there. Okay, but then someone has a 4-bedroom house with 3 chimneys, their property tax is $3,000 and they got a quarter of an acre because they rate it for the property, not, and it's a chief source of income for municipal. So you have a big fight over that, but there needs to be another way because you're forcing people out of their homes at this time because they cannot afford those taxes. So, for me, that would be my angle, is you have to come up with a plan for property tax reform. So it goes, how do you find other things? And I said, you have to find other ways to do stuff. It's just has to be looked at that way. Especially on the school, because they have to reform school funding, because that's 3/4 of your property tax.
Well, so this is an interesting case because the whole idea is that you will get income from your rental. So you're actually going to be able to subsidize your taxes.
Not really,
With
because
this-
you have to pay income tax on the income rental. I've got a rental. And our property tax is now about $3,000 in Rockport. It's a small, probably just under half an acre. It's two apartments.
Mhm.
Okay, and it's like and it's an ocean view, so there's the tax on that, but I rented out, my sister and I, it's like $750 for the downstairs or $775. We don't charge a lot because we don't have a mortgage on it. We just do it to maintain, pay the insurance, make repairs, and then just for some extra cash, which I'm ever grateful for because the inflation's just eating up my income, but it's paying for stuff so far. But on that, but if I was to do, like I was looking at it because we wanted to put a new porch on it and do some kind of thing because it's also a retirement investment. We're going to sell the property when we both retire. My sister and I co-own it. And it was like, but it's the property tax. We couldn't put a solar panel because it would just jump the value of the property so much. But we don't pay extra for the house and property tax, but we do have to report the income. And it's like when your rental income, when you're doing your taxes, you add it as income and then you deduct any expenses and then there's capital improvement stuff.
Right.
And so we had when we first got it, we had a lot of replacement. We had to do a new roof. There were some water heaters, and then I had to do a lot of interior repairs, and there's some other stuff for big dollar items. Redo the electrics and things just to get everything up to code and up to grade. That type thing, but you can't write those off, so it's not, I don't think the town, I've never heard from the town, they know it's 2 apartments. I've never heard from the town where they're charging us extra for having 2 units.
Hmm.
It's still, I think, because it's a single house, there's 2 stories to it, the apartment upstairs, there's no other thing to it, so. But it's also like the old Glen Cove schoolhouse. Downstairs apartment still has the old chalkboard in the fireplace. We're not using it, but it's barely changed because it used to be just a 1 room, but anyway, I digress, but.
My understanding though of the municipal powers is that they really can't change the structure of the property tax, as much as I agree with what you're
Well,
saying.
that's something you have to go after your representatives in the state. This is something and this would be a state or local issue, but
Yeah.
yeah, county government, that type thing.
Yeah.
No one wants to talk about it because no one knows where to come up with the money and they don't want to get into the fight. But if you come up with the plan, and this is for something for people to do, you got to write your representative and say you have to do this.
Well,
That's something you fight for.
let's keep,
But
sorry.
anyway,
I was gonna say, and I don't know if you were raising your hand.
No, I was,
so why don't we keep this discussion going on the agenda?
Mhm.
It's a good one. I love the idea of trying to use the TIF in some way to encourage folks to add apartments and build onto their existing homes. There might be a downside on taxable income. I don't know. I'm not a tax guy.
Oh, can I just add one last comment?
Yeah, of course.
Because this came up in our conversation.
Next month
too.
you could have all the time you want.
Well, I think the trick would be, like, I'm trying to imagine it from my point of view. If I decide to renovate my garage apartment and I want this rebate check from or whatever, the stimulus payment or whatever you want to call it, this check. I need to show that this person is working in the Waldoboro area. So that doesn't seem too much of a hurdle. I mean, basically just have to collect. I would love some input on how you think that should be structured. Like, do I have to then bring to the town 12 pay stubs from this person who's renting from me, or like a
Not 12, Tucker Chevrolet only uses 2 pay stubs.
there you go.
And you
Well, they're not leasing a truck.
Patty,
Well, so one of the things I,
That,
Hang on, Jen.
one
Yeah.
second,
uh,
Patty first.
but what if that person gets a promotion and now they're working in the Rockland office?
exactly.
Right.
So how do we address that if that's how it's gonna work?
Well, maybe
I mean,
they get-
Yes, we want Waldoboro residents, but
Again, we're all talking about a lot of specifics on this thing.
yeah.
Could be its own subject.
There's,
not there
there's
yet.
definitely examples out there. Some
Yeah.
town, some city has example language that we can use, and we can see how that process has been for them. And this is the experience I've always had when talking about any of these programs. We reach out to whatever has something that's very similar to what we're looking for. We see what benefits they had, and if they could do it over again, what would they change? Unfortunately, we're the ones who get to do it over again and make those changes. So we'll get the language, and hopefully that will address what you're all concerned about with the promotions and people who just abruptly leave it. So,
I think we're several months down the road on this one, like,
yeah, just.
so I think we keep it on the agenda. We
And-
probably add some of these items as they come up.
Yeah.
As agenda items.
And Jen just had one.
Yeah,
thought
Jen.
Before we go on.
just that other places, what they have done when they've done, created these kinds of incentive programs is that, and I think Sonia had mentioned, but I'm not sure, that the criteria was that the rent charged would be a moderate rent. So I'm sure that there's data on that, for a certain period of years. And that was meeting the criteria. I know that other places for sure limit the short-term rental days or weeks or whatever for it also. So it's limited to so many days a year or something like that. And consecutive, whether it's consecutive days or non-consecutive, those kinds of things. So there's a variety of ways to approach.
Oh, okay.
I leave it to Jan whether to go on the vote.
Yes, Bob.
I still think it would be very helpful to see a sample ordinance from Alaska, if that's where it is.
Well, I'll
Just to
take,
put something on the table so that we have something to talk.
Something to review.
I'll take that and I'll do some research and pull together some examples.
Okay.
We can't be the first town that's thought of this.
No, I think it's been addressed in a couple towns in New Hampshire, if I remember right, a few years ago, they were starting to look at that.
It's an encouraging idea. I'm excited by this conversation.
Yeah, as well.
All right, so let's wrap that up. Any other old business that I've missed?
It's not on there, but Patty reminded me that I was supposed to set up a meeting with Karen Ann. She is very busy this holiday season, and I don't know if anyone's read the news. Lincoln County is working with the Y to expand the Community Navigator program, so Karen Ann is doing a lot of stuff in this jolly old time. So she is interested in speaking with whoever is interested from the committee. She would just appreciate if that could be done in 2024.
It's fine.
Yeah, she can just
It's gotta
let
be.
us,
'cause
let us know
something
what works
happens.
for her, some kind of, throw some days out or nights or whatever.
Yeah.
Whoever
I'll-
can,
I'll ask her if there's a good time in late January that she could talk with someone from the committee or some people from the committee.
All right, it takes us to new business. Any new business? Yes,
Last month, I had put together the spreadsheet of what some of the local, nearby towns had for websites. I feel that this is an important piece of the way that Waldoboro presents itself to people who might want to come in and build housing, create a business, are looking to say, I've always sort of wanted to start an ice cream stand. Well, what would you know? Where would I even start? And I then completely dropped the ball because I was in California for 2 weeks. So what I wanted to find out from you folks is, would it be a useful thing for me to spend some time going through what we offer, what some of the websites that I thought were particularly helpful offered, particularly Rockland, and see how even sketch out a wireframe of how we might add that material into our website. Possibly chat with Max a little bit, get pointed to any other directions. This may not happen in a month, but at least I'd have something to show you at the, in our next meeting, so that you can say, does this make sense? Does this not make sense? I understand that with websites, there's always the matter of upkeep and updating them. I have no idea who did the website, how often it's updated. I know somehow every time I look at it, it seems to have a particularly unappealing picture. And I was thinking along those lines, either I'm looking at it at the wrong time, or perhaps we can get some connection to Rebecca and some of those amazing photos that she sources for What's New Waldoboro, and maybe switch them in every so often. I don't know the background of this. I don't know who maintains it, but I was thinking it might be interesting to sort of refresh it a little bit, maybe have some little testimonials like you have, on a venture capitalist's website. Oh, it was so great. They came in, they knew all about my industry, they did this and that. Or Waldoboro is great for me because I'm positioned in the heart of the mid-coast, or something like that. Just some boosterish pieces. Now you folks may think that's stupid. And I have no ego put in this. It's something that if you think warrants me spending some time on, I'm happy to do so. If not, I get that too.
We're here for new ideas. Seems like.
yeah, I think that's a good, I'm
Okay.
all for it.
Okay.
Does anyone have a good answer to some of your questions? Who does the website now?
It's relatively new.
Yeah, it was because the last website was an interesting one, right, Jen?
It's a hosted
Yeah,
service.
it was.
Yeah, so right now, the website did its big refresh around COVID. And right now, updates can be done by almost any town staff member, so usually I always upload the planning board minutes, agendas, all these other documents, town clerk will deal with the select board agenda, minutes, documents, all that. If there's ever an RP, we upload it so that it's in the news feed, same thing with the calendars and events, and anything that's on there. Whenever I'm updating the EDC, whenever like, what was it? When all the studies were done by the UMO students or uploading the TIF, the downtown revitalization plan, it was me just going in and adding a little block of text and a link to the stuff.
Okay, great.
And I will say that I found all of that stuff. I have done a lot of research, but because it was pretty clearly available on the website. So there is a lot going for the current website right now.
Yeah.
And I think that this would really make a huge impact, what you're talking about adding to the website.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about, doing business in Waldeboro. I mean, I agree, all the stuff about, it's incredibly transparent. You want to find out anything about what's going on with the select board or anything like that, it's absolutely there. I just found, oddly enough, when I was looking at it, I felt like I didn't have what I needed without making a commitment. I think, and I'm in my early 60s. People who are 30 years younger than I am are allergic to making telephone calls. So the easier we can make it, I think, for people who might be coming with those sorts of questions, to answer them without putting themselves out there or on record as having made a telephone call. Oh my God, it's so scary. Who knows? All we need is one person, and we're sort of, that'll be fine. So anyway, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, we are still a little click here, take you here, click here, take you here. It isn't really like boom. It's more kind of a traditional hunt,
Well, I think,
peck and hunt.
I
It's
think
better
that
than
was,
what we had.
yeah, I think that was the problem with the last website where everything was thrown onto the front page. And so it was all lost in there.
Yeah.
Whereas now, planning board, so you go to government boards, planning board, and all that. But yeah, it's certainly a maze at that point.
Yeah,
I did. It's really a question to Jen. What Ann is talking about really is something that also relates to the WBA.
Yeah, it would definitely give the WBA some love.
Well, I'm working with Madomic Design right now on our new website for the WBA. So we're talking about simple kinds of, navigation. Our upgrade is more modern website, digital mapping guide that can be mobile friendly and things like that. But
I'm just thinking, when back in the day when I had a business and came to Waldeboro, the first person I talked to was in the town office,
yeah,
Amy Winston,
yep.
and she introduced me to George. I mean, it was that simple.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do business in Maine. I did business in Massachusetts, so, but it really was that link, and it started in this office.
Mhm.
I didn't know about the WBA. And maybe at that point, WBA didn't have a website. I don't know.
That's an interesting point, because when I moved to town, I looked in the whole region actually for what kinds of business organizations were out there. And I visited them, and I visited Rockland, I visited Damascotta, and then I visited the WBA, and that was during the time that they had begun to revitalize the organization from years back.
Mm.
And the Camden National Bank made a big investment in supporting that revitalization. And honestly, it was my way in to the community, and it made a huge difference for me. And the thing that, is how Maine people do business. It's person to person in Maine. It's very much a people thing.
The other-
Probably like almost everything we do, right?
The other part of it was though, most people coming in cold really need to understand the state first.
Hmm.
Before they begin to locate a place.
That's an interesting point, because I feel the same thing about a person buying a house. That, because I learned it years ago, and I learned it in Massachusetts where I was before, when I came back home to Maine. You have to look at your zoning and your ordinance before you buy property, period. I wouldn't ever buy property without checking all of that out. And also the other thing is because, for example, my ex bought property in Lowell, Mass, and never checked the zoning. So it was.
He's your ex, right, Jen?
Yeah, right. Anyway, that's funny. So that taught me a huge lesson, and I kept my name off that property. That basically he wanted to do a renovation. It was a 2-family, and he wanted to make it into a 3rd using the 3rd floor. And yet it was zoned for a single family because they wanted to restrict as much as possible anything that anyone could do in that area. And that taught me a lot. And then weirdly, when I moved back home to Maine, the town of Waldoboro was just finishing a multi-year project of redoing ordinances, of establishing really detailed ordinances, and had not had them before. And so at the very end of that process, the WBA was asked to give feedback on the sections of the ordinance had to do with business and operating a business. And I felt like I was just boomed right back into, and I went, oh, ordinances are super important to understand, as is zoning. And also the other thing that people coming from outside, which you guys, everybody here knows, is having a seat at the table to be informed and engaged in these processes, to understand points of view and perspectives, because a community is like a living, breathing thing. And so how do we engage with each other and engage with the community's goals and so forth? It affects everything. It affects our property, it affects our businesses, it affects everything we do and all our decisions that we make. And so in some strange way, I'm not sure, a website can't hit all of that in a sense, because that's kind of I don't know how to say, it's very personal and people to people kind of thing. But a website can, I love the Rockland website. And years ago, when we first started our discussion here in the EDC about how do we do business in Waldoboro, we looked at the Rockland website, but it was a big project at that point. And the town was already dealing with redoing the website that we had. And so we did not pursue that. But the Rockland website does a fantastic job of helping people feel their way through it and get into the process. But you still need the people parts, which is an interesting, not everybody gets that when you come from the city, you know.
I grew up in Poland, Maine.
There you go. No, I didn't mean you. I was thinking of just people who generally come up from the city. They don't always quite get it right away. That it's really your relationships that are going to define how things go.
So I think that's a yes.
Oh, sorry.
No, wonderful.
Well, actually, one thing we could take from what you're saying and connected to what you're saying, and is that there should be changes to the website. It should look like an open gate, and it should actually give you ideas to start businesses in a way. It should almost sort of say, why don't you think about this?
Right.
Without being specific, just sort of make it so accessible that people think, oh, I could be a business owner.
Yeah.
And that it should sort of direct people to other people, in other words.
Come and talk to Max.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Max is really crucial.
We get him ready to-
And he's got nothing but time.
He knows everybody's name.
Yeah,
He does.
Well, he's a lot of names. He knows.
right, as long as,
It's a lot of names.
Everybody knows your name.
as long as they send emails, I'm allergic to the phones.
That's funny.
Millennial
The
curse.
Belfast site I thought was good
Alright.
too, that.
Yes,
no,
yeah,
like
that one
event,
also was
I
good.
liked
I
it.
do have two other really quick things for new business. One is, so I was on the town website as well. And I went to the EDC link
Oh, no.
under committees. And everything looks wonderful. It's got our mission and vision statements. If anybody hasn't read them, go onto the web and have a look. But then there's a tab that says general information. I think it says that. You click on that and it goes back to a page that must have been a page from like 20 years ago. It's got like Ted Worcester's name in there still. And like,
I do think we want to have the team on it.
we're on it.
Okay, good.
We're on the right page.
Okay, good.
But then there's this general information button
Oh, dear.
that takes you back to what it was 10 years ago or something like
A lost link.
You mean in the time of the master plan?
that.
All right, well, I guess
Is
I'm
on it.
I know that when the website was being moved over, some links were kept, so.
That's one that probably nobody's clicked on till I did it. There you go. And then one other really quick thing, this is a personal thing. This town sign up front of this building needs some love or help or something.
Yeah.
It's kind of embarrassing.
I heard at one point Julie said she had someone looking at it that was. Knew something about it. It looks like there's some. I don't know how that sign works other than red, green, blue, but it's some, there's a loose wire somewhere.
Yeah.
I got a heat gun. I can go point that at the side of the house.
Bob,
I have some background information on that sign. It was a gift to us from Julie's predecessor.
which
And-
one?
I like when you face that.
I don't want to get personal here. But it's supposed to represent the colors of Madomic Valley High School. And as far as I'm aware, that was the rationale for choosing those colors.
So I think we're talking maybe about different things. What I see on the sign is, so those LED things they come in square blocks, you can pull out. and
Yeah,
replace.
that's an electrical issue. They've repaired one side of it.
Oh, okay, so
They haven't repaired the other side of it yet.
that's the blue I was referring to.
Okay.
I don't have any
The
issues
big
with the others.
blocks, it's like,
Yeah, it looks like
No,
someone picked.
they're aware that needs to be, the
Oh,
other
okay.
side needs to be fixed. It has something to do with.
So
Sorry,
if you're
it's just-
going
it'd be a
north.
crazy-
it's
Hold on,
okay.
everyone's all
Going
over the place.
south, it's not fixed.
Are they
Everyone's
missing something? Is it is there something they need that they don't have? Is there someone, there's probably someone not in this room I could ask that question to maybe?
Don't look at me, I'd never bother with that sign, Bob.
I just agree when you said it's not a good sign.
I think I used
I-
the word embarrassment.
I agree with that. I agree with that in general because I hate that sign, even when it's lit up and working.
Okay,
I don't like that sign. It's
Okay.
ugly.
all right,
It's just no aesthetic to it. But if we can afford to take it down or replace it, I would do that.
100%.
all right. Rebecca, what were you saying in the back?
Oh, just that it's fixed on one side, so if you're heading north, it looks okay. If you're headed south, it doesn't. My understanding is that whoever put it in, the company doesn't exist or doesn't service them anymore.
Because of
So, so the pieces have been ordered
Oh,
and
okay.
then Public Works is doing it.
Right.
Because somebody who works for Public Works knows enough to do that, but then again, they also then need the time. And it's,
So-
you know,
My follow-on question to that is do they know what to do with the broken components they pull? And if not, can I look at them?
probably, but I
I don't know that I can do anything with it, but I'm intensely curious. I want to see what's going on. I hate things that can't be repaired.
I wish this was a question that was asked when Julie was in the room. That sounds like a
Oh,
question.
that's okay.
A call in the morning.
Oh, I love bothering Julie. It's my second favorite thing to do outside of posting cat photos to social media.
So we're all in
Hold
agreement that
on.
something should be done.
Sonia, you had your hand up a while ago.
Oh, I was gonna say that blue light looks like it's a police car sitting at the
Yeah,
end of the
you're right.
driveway.
Yeah.
It always throws you off because you think you're driving onto an accident, so,
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
Agreed.
And you
It
can't
might
read
keep
it
the
driving
speed
by.
down on
any-
this one road in town.
Yeah. So Bob wants to fix it with a snow plow. That's what I heard.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That was the line of the meeting.
Sounds like we need to have.
The blue light always makes you think you're driving onto the scene of an accident.
Well,
It must be 20-year-old technology.
I'll tell you.
Okay. How old is this sign? It's gotta be like 20-year-old technology.
no,
The LEDs are.
20.
No,
I
it's about-
gotta
it's
head
about
out,
10.
guys, so.
If
are we
that.
Yeah.
Cut up here.
I think that sign's made,
Yeah.
I think it's too close to where it's supposed to be. That technology is great, like a sports stadium or something far away. So I think
Oh,
you're standing too close to it.
Just a
Okay.
quick thing, since we are getting into more of casual conversation, it is
Fair.
7:45.
Yep.
Right? People don't want to be here too late, especially during the winter.
Sonia's got her cap on, so it's.
hang on. Any comments from the committee? Comments from the committee?
I'm gonna stop making them.
I want to thank you for all your work, Jen, as the chairman over the past 10 years.
Past chairman?
Past chairman. And be super excited for Conrad in
100%.
his willingness to take up the baton.
All right. And on
Yeah,
that note,
yeah.